accepted.
All right, hey. How you doing? Good, good, good. Good to see so many people here, right? And I love the enthusiastic applause after the lunch break. I know, yeah, getting tired, having something in your stomach. So let's start with developer joy. You might think, why is this guy from Atlassian talking about joy, right? We have the best jobs in the world, right? We are software developers. We create stuff. Why do we need to talk about joy? Yes. Let me show you something, and then we will see. All right, developer joy. So back to the productivity, right? So what we just saw, that a lot of stuff has been put on the shoulders of software developers recently, right? I mean, just like shifting left, and now we also do operations, we're doing DevOps and all those stuff, right? But now our CTOs or managers say, now we have to get back to productivity, right? We need to be productive. And of course, if you put more things on the shoulders of software developers, probably productivity in terms of getting features out will drain a little bit, right? So I want you, I mean, I'm wearing not this outfit just for fun, right? It's a sophisticated outfit for time travelers, if you have seen Back to the Future. Who has seen Back to the Future? Okay, great, most of you, so you get it. So I don't have a DeLorean with me today, so I'm sorry about that. But I want to take you on a little bit of a time travel. Are you okay with that? Yes? Okay, good. And I promise you, I'll bring you back in the year 2023 afterwards, so no worries. So we're traveling back in time 125 years. I want you to look at the slide, right, and then I count to 3, and then we all travel back 125 years into the past. 1, 2, 3. Everyone here still? Great, right? So we are all in the year 1898 in the Bethlehem Steel Factory. And you know what? The Bethlehem Steel Factory workers, they had some productivity issues. So what the managers of the Bethlehem Steel Factories did was, we need to do something about it. We need to just and at that time, they couldn't call McKinsey or the Boston Consultant Group to just bring off a bunch of consultants and help with productivity issues. No, they didn't exist at that time. So they hired one person. His name was Frederick Winslow Taylor. You might have heard of him. Who knows Frederick Winslow Taylor? A few of you? Okay, great, great. You can read about him, famous for his Taylorism, and I explain a little bit what that means. So Frederick Winslow Taylor did the following. He was watching the workers, right, and wanted to improve their productivity. So the first thing that he did was just he pulled out his stopwatch. So he pulled out the stopwatch and stopped everything that the workers did, right? And the first thing that he noticed was when they were shuffling coal, a lot of code was falling left and right from the shuffle. It was just like normal shuffles, right? So he made them custom-made shuffles. So awesome tools help with productivity. So productivity increased with that. And then he looked at how much they could carry. And obviously, at the beginning of the day, the workers could carry more than at the end of the day, right? They were exhausted at the end of the day. So what Frederick Winslow Taylor did was gave the workers more breaks in between, just like small little breaks, right? And again, productivity increased. All in all, Frederick Winslow Taylor increased the productivity of the factory workers by 400%. Oh, great. Wow, this is awesome, right? This is great. So, but everything comes with a flip side. Also, the roles, actually, of the workers have changed significantly. Now the workers were just doing repetitive tasks. Actually, it went so far that they said, you don't have to think about anything, you just like do what we say, right? So who's just like doing that? Who's just like telling them what to do? Yes, the managers, right? The managers were telling them what to do, so productivity was great, right, in that factory. So this was actually 125 years ago. Okay, I promise you, we travel back now in the year 2023, 1, 2, 3, boom, and here we are back, talking about developer productivity. And it's a little bit like a human habit to just like fall back into this, oh, we need to optimize every little thing. But what does developer productivity mean? How do we just like measure this? So my first job that I got, actually my manager wanted me to count the lines of code, right? And say, oh, we added, I don't know, 20,000 more lines of code. Great productivity, right? This year. Whoa, cool. We all know that this is a stupid metric to measure, right? I can add more lines of code if I want, just easily. And then the next one was just like, okay, then count how many tasks we put into done, right? There are smaller and larger tasks, so we all know this is also not a good thing. So the next thing would be just like, okay, but we have these story points, right? The Fibonacci number. And when we just like estimate the story, we have the story points that fit into an iteration, and that shows a little bit like how productive we are. Yeah, it's an estimation, right? It doesn't tell us what we really have done, right? And also the Fibonacci numbers are just like, is it now a 3 or a 5, or I can't remember all the Fibonacci numbers. So we made it a little bit easier and called them t-shirt sizes, like small, medium, large. Didn't help either. So nowadays, we talk about productivity when we just like say, okay, what is the cycle time, right? Or what is the deployment frequency? All of these things. And what are we doing with these, right? We apply the Taylorism again, right? We say, okay, great, now that we know our cycle time or our deployment frequency, we just like want to get faster and better, right? So 10% more story points in the next iteration is great. Or just like 20% faster pull request reviews. Wow, cool, right? So thank you very much, Frederick Winslow Taylor, that we are still looking at these with the eyes of Frederick Winslow Taylor. So, what can we do, right? Yeah, there's one thing that a lot of people talk about these days, and this is developer experience. Let's improve the developer experience. And don't get me wrong, I think this is a great term, right? It's a great term for just like telling more about just like what we feel as developers, where we can just like be more productive. But also here, just like I think there are the consulting groups that are just like thinking, oh, great term, right? So we just like have a framework for that now. So we just like have built a framework, and then we certify people as certified developer experience master or whatever, right? Well, it's a good approach, but we think we should just like take a step more back and go back to really why we became developers and why we love this industry so much, and go back to developer joy. So this is what this talk will be about. How do we get back to just like what we enjoy, what we're doing day in, day out? So I put it into 3 categories. So developer joy is first, I think, when I work on great quality code. When my code is great, and I love to work with my code, I open my IDE and say, oh, wow, this is so cool, this is great, I love to work with my code. So good quality code. The next thing is just like when things flow through our pipelines. You got an idea on Monday morning and get it deployed on Thursday. Great, right? Things are flowing through the pipeline, no dependencies on other teams or whatever, just like everything the team can decide. Great developer progress. And the last thing, I think this is the most important thing, is when we create value. When our customers come back to us, give us feedback and say, we love your software, we love what you're doing, we really enjoy your software, and the last feature was just like awesome, I love it, right? Taking pride in your work is just like, brings a lot of joy. And guess what? If we just like enjoy what we do, we are also productive. We're doing things like with great quality code, with progress, and we're creating the best things that we can do for our customers. Wow, this is productivity, right? So let's go back to developer joy. And let's talk a little bit about just like how to increase the developer quality. I bring you a couple of stories from some teams. I think they're all at Atlassian, and just like tell you what they did, just like to improve quality, progress, or the value that they create for the customers, right? So just imagine your software is just like a nice piece of art, like this here, right? Like this building. It's like your customer love it. They just like look at it and say, "Oh wow, this is so awesome," right? Can you just change this tiny little thing? And you said, "Yeah, no problem. Let me just open my IDE and look at my code, and your code looks like this, right? A mess inside." And code gets older, and code gets a little bit messy after a while, right? We call this technical debt. And we recently did a survey and asked developers how much time do you spend actually on technical debt, dealing with technical debt, right? So 42% of the developer time is used for just like dealing with technical debt. But here's the worst thing, right? Just 10% of the developers are actually actively managing technical debt. Otherwise, let it just happen and fix things along the way, but they don't calculate that in, right? So this is a little bit like a downspin, right? We need to work on that. So here's another story. When I just like went, so I wrote this nice piece of code. It's not very sophisticated, but I like it. It's looking nice. It's good. And this is just an example. So all starts out very nicely, right? I just like write this piece of code, check it in, works, great, wrote a test, cool, go on vacation, and then 2 weeks later, coming back from vacation, just like opening the code again, and my coworkers have changed it significantly, right? Whoa, what did they do? They messed up my nice looking code, right? So sometimes things ends up in a mess, and we have all been there, just like, what happened to this code, right, in the last 2 weeks? I don't know, right? But my coworkers, they didn't want to mess this thing up. They maybe were just like under pressure, right? They just like needed to do it. And they might thought about just like, okay, yeah, it's Friday evening, I just like put in the code and I fix it on Monday morning, and Monday morning they opened their Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever. It's just like they found like, oh, there's so many new messages here, and forgot about it. And then it looks like this. We have to do something about it. We just like need something that helps us to think about this is wrong what we're doing in the first place, right? And this is called coding guidelines. I hope you all have coding guidelines. Your coding guidelines would have caught this, right? They would have caught this, right? Okay, good, just to be sure. All right, and you know what? Some things of these things, like in the coding guidelines, can be checked automatically. So yeah, your tools check these coding guidelines that you have to have just like a common understanding what good quality looks like. They check this automatically, right? They check this automatically, right? We're clear. Okay, great. Okay, good to know. So here are the coding guidelines, or a few of them, from the Bitbucket team. Just like simple things, but they agree on a certain thing, right? So their code looks nicely, and they can just like recognize patterns in the code because they can read the code. It's all written with the same coding guidelines in mind. And you see, like the single responsibility principle was probably not followed in my code, right? So someone just like should have just like said something when they see it. But how do they do that? How do they see my code and just like do that? Oh yeah, they're doing code reviews, right? So you're doing code reviews. That's great. You're doing code reviews, right? Every line of code got reviewed. Okay, great. Okay, just to be clear here. So here's something. But code reviews are a really hard thing. A lot of teams are not just like doing them, or a lot of people just like don't like code reviews very much, right? So here's the thing, just like assuming I have added this code here, and then I put it just like a pull request out there, invite some reviewers, and the first reviewer in my team says this. What the fuck, Sven? I said, what? What do you mean? I mean, okay, I'm a kind person, right? So I'm just like asked, what do you mean? And said, this code looks ugly. Okay, great. I start to hate code reviews already, right? I don't want to go on. I feel bad about it. But I'm also still a nice person and says, what do you mean? What does ugly mean? And said, yeah, it would have been nice if it would have been a for loop, right? I said, duh, right? Great, nicer. What does that mean, nicer? I don't know. Tell me, I want to learn, right? So if you're this kind of person that putting in these code review comments in your code, right? Just one advice for you: don't be a jerk, right? Be nice, right? Don't be a jerk, right? So, who in the audience here has been bullied by a jerk? Let's say in the last month. No, keep your hands down. I know your coworkers are in the room, so it's fine. It's fine. I just like twinkle with the eye a little bit. Wow, amazing. So. Actually, jerks are the reason why people don't like code reviews, why they hate actually doing code reviews, right? And we should look at it from a different perspective. You, as an author, you open yourself up. But as a reviewer, you're just like in this protected bubble, right? And you can just like throw things out of this bubble. But as an author, you just like open yourself up and you get feedback for what you have done, right? So here's some rules also for code reviews. It's not just like rules for code, but also for code reviews. So one thing would be just like assume competence, right? Assume that your reviewers are the authors, your coworkers that write the code are competent. They get hired for a reason. They get paid for a reason. They're competent, right? This is the first thing. Be constructive in your feedback. This code looks ugly. I don't know what that means, right? I don't know. Be constructive. Tell me what it's all about. And then also explain your reasoning, right? A for loop would be nicer. A while loop works great, but why is a for loop nicer? Tell me. I want to learn too. So also this, just like work on code reviews and improve the quality of your code. And all of this, just like having some rules for code reviews, just like means less bullying, right? Less jerks, more code reviews, more reviewing, you learn more, you're happier as a team, and you increase your developer joy. All right, assuming that your code looks now great, your code reviews are passing through, you merge your code back to the main branch, and then, of course, yeah, your CI/CD pipeline kicks in, and the test kicks in, right? So the software gets tested. It's probably been tested before, hopefully, but then the test runs through, right? And sometimes it happens that the test just like turns red. And you say, let me just look why this test is red. You watch the stack trace, it's just like following, just like, okay, this I don't understand. Look at the code and say, I don't understand. Dive deeper into. Half an hour later, you're just like finding, I don't know why this test failed. So what am I doing? Deleting the test, probably not the best idea. I rerun the test, right? I just rerun the test. Oh, it's green, great, I can go on, great, it's working now, magically. No, you just discovered a flaky test, right? All your code is flaky. So you need to do something about it. All right, sorry, it's time for a commercial break. I'll be back after the break.
Is seeing red build after red build getting old? Is rerunning your failed jobs getting you down? Is waiting on those failed jobs to finish making you crazy? Deterministic Reliability is here to help. With our handy-dandy flaky test monitoring system, we will, eventually, automatically bypass those flaky tests. For 4 easy payments of free, you too can save time, ship quality code faster, be more productive, feel so much better when you go to work every day. You will be happier. Your team will be happier. You'll stop dying inside. You'll stop banging your head against your desk. You'll stop replacing computers that are in a rage against the wall. Sorry. It's just a little close to home. Call 1-800-ATLASIAN today to get your free flake monitoring system.
All right, we didn't create a flake monitoring system, so don't call 1-800-ATLASIAN. We don't have. It's just a team that came up with this flake monitoring system and just like build it, and then just like create the video so other people can just like use it too. Other teams can use it too. So how does it work, the Flaky test detector? Just running through it. It's pretty easy. Just like you create the pull request, the build and test kicks off, test fails, boom, Flaky test detector says, okay, let me try it again, right? And then rerun the test maybe 2-3 times, and then one of those reruns is green, great, so Flaky test detected. The next thing that the Flaky test detector does is just like saying skip test, because we need to move on, right? So just like for first thing, skip it, but we have to do something. So they add a comment to the pull request. So the author of the pull request needs to just like do something about it. And also, you get a message in your team Slack channel to just like look at it and fix it. So you're just like aware that you need to jump immediately on it and fix those flaky tests. Okay, flaky test detection means just like less debug frustration and more developer joy. You might ask yourself now, but we talked about developer quality is all a little bit wishy-washy, right? How do we measure now developer quality? And what is great developer quality? If you want to start somewhere, right, start with the DORA metrics. Change failure rate, time to restore is a great metric to just like start with, and the DORA metric shows also that you improve as a team when you just like follow the DORA metrics. But you also should measure it over time, and then also just like establish baseline, something where you just, okay, now we need to really look at that. Now it's getting really, really bad, and it can be just because of, I don't know, but you need to look at those baselines and do something about it, right? Establish baselines. And then what are you doing? Just like maybe you put those results on a dashboard, right, to show like, okay, everything is red, and that is exactly the problem, right? We know all the wallboard problem. When things are turning red, right? The first one, maybe you fix it, but then if the whole board is red, all 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things are all red, you just like say, I'm ignoring it right now, right? It's still working, the software is still working, but your quality metrics are actually down. So what can you do about this? So what we do is actually we're doing a weekly ritual with the team, right? So the team looks at those metrics and say, okay, metrics are down. We need to do something. So we just like have some action plans. All the team says, all good, right? It's okay. It's okay right now. So we know that the metrics will go down. They will go up next week because we're just like doing some experimentation stuff or whatever, right? We know that we will fix it. So, but it's important not just to look at those dashboards and say, oh my God, everything is red. Can be okay. So just like do a weekly ritual and look at those metrics and try to fix your metrics. So let's talk about progress, right? Quality, great, progress. And for developers, progress means just like spending as much time as possible in the flow state. And we love that, right? When things are just like, the code is just like flying from our head through our fingers on the keyboard into the laptop. Great. We love that when we're just like in the flow, uninterrupted work. We are so productive doing that. But software development is not only around the flow, the coding phase, right? There's much more involved in that, like the build and test phase or the deploy phase, right? And we can improve that, right? We can improve our tests, right? Sometimes the tests run forever. We can just like parallelize them or look at the tests. If we can make them faster, we should do that and can cut them down maybe to 10 minutes if we have a half-an-hour build or whatever. We need to look at those things. There are patterns where we can just like apply. And also the deploy phase, we can just like deploy more microservices instead of the whole big monolith that we want to deploy, just like build microservice and deploy that. We can also cut that time down. But there's one phase that takes actually a long time, And this is the review phase. And it can take days, right? When you create your pull request until it's merged, it can take days. And this is really the big chunk that you need to cut down. We actually measure things at Atlassian, so we measured it. And for us, actually, on average, it took 3 days to just like from opening the pull request to merge it back. That means 3 days of working on some other task that you have, right? And then coming back to what you have built 3 days before and read through all the comments and just like, oh, wow, I need to just like adjust my mind to that code right now and need to think what I have done and come back and fix it. So cut that time down. It also means that 3 days your customers can't use that feature already, so we need to cut that time down. So one team actually had this 3 days problem. So you have here now 3 open pull requests with attached reviewers. What actually the team lead did, Punit Arora, he just like did something very simple. In the morning, before everyone went to work, he pinged everyone, sent everyone an email and says, hey, you know, you are on a pull request and you're a reviewer on a pull request. So first thing, before you start working, I know there's a lot, but please review. It's important for our team to cut down that time. Please review that pull request so we can move on with our software development. And the team just like, yeah, okay, they actually increased their time and they just like felt like, oh, Punit, so good of you that you just remind us. We saw this notification in the afternoon, but we totally forgot about it. And then just like, we looked at it and said, oh yeah, I need to review that. Or I looked at the pull request, there's so much code, and the team learned to cut it down into smaller chunks. Could also be that they learned that. But they said, it's not your task to do that. So what they did in a small like hackathon, they replaced Punit with a bot called the Punit bot. And the Punit bot is now doing this job that Punit was doing, right? They pinged every developer in the morning and says, hey, you know, you have an open pull request review. Please be so kind and review that pull request. And they cut down the times from 3 days to 1.2 days, actually, which is a significantly improvement here. 1.2 days, still very long, but still improved the pull request review time. All right, so it means less wait time for developers to just like wait until everyone reviewed it, coming back and rethink everything, and more developer joy, right? As I said, flow is very important. Flow is important when we code, but flow is also important when we have dependencies with other teams, right? We need to stay in the flow, and sometimes we need to stop. So why not do very chaotic work, just like that? We throw work from other teams into each other. I looked at some traffic junctions and compared that to work. So here's a traffic junction with no rules at all. The cars are just like driving and finding their way through. And this simulation says the traffic flow is 191 cars per minute. So 191 pieces of work we can do per minute or whatever we want to translate that to work. If we just like do chaotic things and just like whoever screams loudest, we just like jump on it. Now, we don't work this way, right? We have processes in place, and let's assume we have very strict processes in place. So let's add some traffic lights. So one team needs to stop, and the other team can go full on, and then other team just like then this team needs to stop and the other teams can go full on, right? It's just like traffic junction with traffic lights, and the throughput here is 235 cars per minute. Wow, we increased it. Great, good, cool. We could stop here, right? But this is also not the way we work, right? It's not, we don't have just like very strict processes and we need to stop here and wait until the other team is ready. We work in an agile way. So our work looks more like this. Every time there's a slot, we slot it into the next sprint, or if we need a designer, we slot it into the design sprint, it comes back, boom, right? So the roundabout is probably more the agile way of working, iterations, Kanban, Scrum, these things, and the traffic flow is 360, so increased traffic flow here, great. But wait, there's one more thing, and that's called the stack interchange. And the stack interchange, if you look at the cars, they don't stop at all, right? They don't slow down, they don't have to wait, right? They just like merge easily into the other lane, into other work streams, right? So Traffic flow is 1,099 cars per minute. So we need to work more in the way of these stack interchange. But how do we do that? How do we do that with work? Good question. So we need to make our team as autonomous as possible, right? So we don't just wait for other teams. We need to make our teams autonomous so they can just run in their own flow. They don't have to wait for somebody to merge things back, right? So, yeah. So, but that means actually also we need to be very, very aligned because there are dependencies between those teams. So we need to also align those. So autonomous teams, highly aligned. And if we build autonomous teams, we need, of course, just a designer on the team, a product manager on the team, ops people, security, research. Everyone needs to be on the team, so we don't have to just wait for another team and says, no, it's not time for the sprint. We can slot it into the next design sprint, and then you get it. No, we have the designer on the team that can just do it on their own. Except there is no team that actually has, or not a lot of teams that has a full-time design job inside those, right? And we don't have enough designers to put them on every team. So what we do is just yeah, let's replace that with developers, let developers do the work, shift left, right? And then developers can do the job. No. So the Trello team actually had that problem. So back in the days, the developers were doing the automated tests, and the QA were doing just the exploratory tests or the click-through tests, right? So pretty clear. We need to throw things over the wall, but we all know, right? This takes time then, coming back, right? This is not the way we want to work, right? So developers are now also doing the exploratory tests, and the QA people can just drink pina colada and Bali or whatever, right? They can go home because the developers are doing the job. This is not the way we want to do it, right? So QA doesn't call it quality assurance at the Trello team. They call it quality assistance. Right? So it's just a balance where the quality assistance people or the quality engineers help developers to become testers, to think more like a tester, and help them with the test plans. So one thing that they did actually is they do a feature test strategy before they actually start in and develop the feature. So before the developer goes in, a quality engineer comes and says, okay, let's write down the test plan. When the feature is ready, you're going to test this. The developer learns a little bit about how to write tests and what to look after in testing. And the QA engineer can then go, the developer develops the user story, tests it with a test plan, and can deploy it directly without a QA engineer involved at the end. So this way, there's no dependency anymore at the end, right? We're doing something we call a demo, so QA engineers can just attend that and say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? But normally, it's just flowing easily through the pipelines. Then the QA engineers can take more time on just building a test platform, building test databases, all those things, right? And spend their time with that and helping developer to lower their cognitive load, right? All of this means less developer cognitive load and more developer joy, actually. Now, what is great developer progress? Well, also here start with the DORA metrics, deployment frequency, lead time for changes. Probably a good way to start if you can measure that. That's probably a good way, but there's way more, and I come to that in a bit. The last thing is developer value, creating developer value, right? We want to create value that our customers really love. And our product managers just talk day in, day out to users, and just this is what users imagine. And what actually the product managers do then, after the whole lot of research and interviews and squeeze everything in a small little user story, and give it to the developers, and developers are developing the user story. And then we come in as just very creative people and say, oh yeah, great, we know better, right? We know better how to build great cars, right? Like this, what Homer Simpson built, his dream car, right? Didn't listen to the users and just thought about just this is what I want to build, just building a lot of cup holders in it and stuff like that. But there's one thing here, just that product people are taking a lot of time putting it in the user stories, and then the developers are building it based on the user story with a maybe misunderstanding of things or whatever. They didn't talk enough to each other. So we need to close that gap between product people and developers by involving actually our developers more in the whole product cycle, right? So if we see like the developers are heavily involved in the make phase, right? And the product people are more involved in the problem phase and the wonder phase, there's something wrong, right? We need to just like get everyone involved here. But there are more phases. There's the explore phase and then the impact phase. So this is what we designed at Atlassian, where we just like say, okay, these are the phases a feature goes through. Of course, everything is interconnected, so we can jump from one phase easily back to the previous phase, or just like to the problem phase directly. But not everyone is equally involved in those phases. So where developers are just like, yeah, we want to know in the problem phase what you just like have on your roadmap. So we just like can give you also feedback, where the product people are probably more involved into these phases here. And what we designed was just like really helping those teams, those cross-functional teams, to just like follow that steps by having milestones. So doing a project kickoff is mandatory, just like doing a kickoff with everyone involved, the ops people, the designers, the product people, the developers, everyone. Explore phase means just like we're building prototypes, and not just Figma prototypes, but also real prototypes that we use in development, and say, okay, this is technical, probably not feasible, and this is probably feasible. Then we're doing regular demos, also to involve the product people in the things we built. Also super important that they actually can give us feedback, and this says this is not what we imagined. And then we have goal signal measures at the end, where we just like measure the impact that we are creating. Now, we're software developers, so I want to talk mostly here about the demos that we're creating. So this is probably not going to happen anymore. Demos in person. Most teams also at Atlassian are remote or hybrid teams. So we do them over Slack. But it's the same concept. We involve everyone into those weekly or bi-weekly demo meetings, right? And showing actually what we have done. So first, these demo sessions are open. So everyone in the company that wants can to join. And they are also recorded. So I can watch the demo session because they normally happen in Australia time. Well, that's where most of the developers are sitting for Atlassian. I can watch them in the morning and watch the demo sessions. Then they are outcome-oriented. So no implementation details, but they show customer value. It's all about customer value. And this is a group thinking exercise. So everyone just like gathers around and just like want to make the product better, just like challenge the solution. And sometimes the product managers are even saying, sorry, we take this back to the customer and see if this really resonates with the customer, right? Before we actually deploy it to all customers, and then we get the feedback. We just like give that back, and maybe we designed it wrong. And then also celebration, because everyone is sitting together. If you get just great feedback from the customers, you can just like have everyone in the meeting and just like celebrate what you've done and say, oh, customers love it, great, great, great. So also this means less rework frustrations because we're catching things way earlier in the loop, and more developer joy. All right. What does that now mean, developer joy? How do we measure this, right? Because here's the famous quote: if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So we need to measure in order to improve. This is what Peter Drucker is saying, right? And you can measure a lot of things, right? I showed you the DORA metrics, but different teams at Atlassian measuring different things. We have a few global measurements that we just like have as Atlassian, but different teams, for different teams, different things are important in their measurements, and they just like take whatever they need and what's important for them, right? So think about just like what is important for your software, for your industry, for you, and don't just like follow just like, okay, we have the DORA metrics, we measure those, and now we're great, right? All signals are great, right? Look at what really bothers you, and how can you improve your software development lifecycle. So we're just like using our own tool, Compass, for that, but there are tons of other tools out there, and we created those scorecards where we can just like see how good we are in terms of the measurements, and sometimes we also establish the baselines, of course, in those scorecards, and we see just like oh, things are wrong, and I already told you about this, that we also are doing check-ops or weekly ritual, and we've built that into Compass too, so we can just like directly in the tool review the metrics and just like make comments of what we should improve and how we can improve it, and meet again next week and review if our actions that we just like gave ourselves are just like going forward. So also good, weekly ritual, checkups, doing that. Now that we have the measurements, we're just like more productive, right? So GitHub did this cool experiment about just like asking their developers at the end of the day, how productive have you been? Right? So what do you feel about just like at the end of the day? Have you been productive or not? Right? How was your day? Right? And some days are good. We know that. Some days we are really productive and we think just like we're cranking out really great things. And sometimes we're just like, not so good. Right? And then they overlaid that with data. Right? They just like looked at the data and see just like how many activities per day. And so the truth is, poor AutoCAD here, they couldn't find a correlation between those two things, like how developer felt and what the data was showing. So no correlation there, right? And it is also because people are looking at software development like this, right? Oh, yeah, the good old Taylorism, right? We just like need to just like, we have these numbers and we need to just like make it faster, make it more productive, like the factory workers in the Bethlehem Steel Factory or like a car production. But you know what? We don't produce cars. We have a creative job, and sometimes things take longer because we're working on very complicated stuff in the code, right? Obviously, they take longer, and sometimes things go faster if we have a lot of easy tasks that we do. So software development is not a production line, even though some people like to treat it that way and just like throw measurements at us and just like say, you need to improve, you need to improve. It's not a production line. It's a creative job. We don't produce the same software over and over again like we produce cars. So here's another quote. Measure what's important, but don't make important what you can measure, right? So it's not just looking at the numbers. The numbers are showing us signals, like in checkups, where we just say, look at those numbers, and maybe it makes sense that we crashed the baseline, but maybe we need to also to do something. We were lazy or whatever, or just something happened. But also ask your developer what is happening and what bothers you the most to just like come back to developer joy. And we're doing these surveys regularly where we just ask people just like, how satisfied are you with your speed to ship quality code? Or how satisfied are you with your waiting time that you have in between? How satisfied are you with your autonomous teams, with your execution independence? Your access to tools, process, practices, is that okay, right? Do you have the right tools for the job, right? How satisfied are you with managing external standards like security and governance? How satisfied are you with managing your code and your pipeline, your infrastructure? Is there too much time that you spend in this? What is with the ramp-up time if you got new developers? Satisfied are you with that? And how is your developer satisfaction overall? So I want you to look at all these and just like tell me what is your biggest developer change. So you can pull out your phones, scan this QR code, and we're doing a live poll here to see just like what is the most pain point in developer joy that you have. As I said, speed to quality, ship quality code, your wait time, are you not satisfied with that? Your execution independence, your access to tools, processes, and practices, effort of managing your external standards, right? Code pipeline infrastructure. Or is it ramp-up time when you get new developers on? Or is it your developer satisfaction overall, right? You're not satisfied. That's my biggest pain point. What is your biggest pain point? And if the internet gods are with us, we can look a little bit at the numbers and see how Croco is doing. All right. Great. Interesting. We got 60 people, 64 people. Numbers are still changing. There's still the QR code if you just like come late to the game. Wait time seems to be just like the winner here, right? You're mostly not satisfied with wait time. And that's just to be honest, also what Atlassian is not satisfied with, our developers mostly, and developer satisfaction overall. Great. All right. Cool. Thank you very much. So what we're doing is not just asking people, like in this survey, just for easy, we did that. We're just like asking on a scale from 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with that, right? So this is how we measure it, right? Because you can be satisfied a little bit or just like totally. So we ask on a scale from 1 to 10, how satisfied are you? But also, what's really important is to ask, how important is that for your team, right? So some things can be not as important as for other things, right? Ramp up time. If you don't get a new developer in every 2 weeks or something, ramp up time is probably not that important for you. So we're also asking that's how important is that, and then we're calculating an opportunity score out of this. So we can just like see, yeah, green is great, that's important and satisfied. But if you just like go under this white corridor here, right, below this, then we have to do something. So, and we give those results then to the teams to say, okay, everyone in the team just like together, just like said, our speed to ship sucks, right? We need to do something about this, right? So if you want to do the more sophisticated developer joy survey, I put it on Typeform. It's bit.ly/developerjoy. So you can just like go there and try it out with your team to just like do this regularly with your team to see like where you can improve things, right? So it's a Typeform. I don't collect any email addresses. You just like click through, and at the end you get the result, and then you can compare it. So go in actually and try to fix things, right? I showed you a few examples from Atlassian teams what they did to try to improve the quality, right? Like building a Flaky test detector. The QA department just like said, okay, we're just like helping developers to remove obstacles to just like and then help them with a developer flow. So all try to fix things, right? And how can you do that? You can just like run developer experience hackathons regularly, or you just like do 20% time, which we tried at Atlassian and we failed with it. We measured it and it was more 3-4% time. So really hard to get developers out of their sprints and work on something else because you don't want to let down your coworkers. So what we did is actually helped us to have really a sprint, so a developer joy week, where we just like take out everyone and just like now we work on developer joy for this whole week, like and try to fix things. Or you include it in your normal sprints. Also possible that you also just like have specific story points for this developer joy stories, right? Important is that you do some things about it and don't just like let things happen, right? And then also if you build something and it's just like great, like the Flaky test detector, spread learnings. You don't have to do a video, of course, all the time. That's what that team did. But look at what the Punit bot people did. They wrote a blog post, and we are blogging heavily at Atlassian. They wrote a blog post about how the Punit bot helped them, how's it working, and guess what? Now 20 teams at Atlassian are actually using actively the Punit bot to help them to cut down their pull request time. All right. It's time to sum up here. Like, take those measurements, these are signals, and the survey results, these are real what developers feel, the real pain that they feel, right? And give those to your autonomous teams, right? Give those teams also time, like 20% of the time or 10% of the time, however you just like get your management to do that. But developer productivity is the top of head right now for CTOs. So give them time to really fix things, right? You need to fix things and let them fix the developer quality, the developer progress, and the developer value, right? Because if you work with great quality code and your code or your ideas flow through the pipelines and you're just like making progress very fast and you create great value for your customers. And I always wanted to do a Venn diagram in my talks, and now I have it right in the middle there, right? This is actually where joy is happening. We became developers for a reason, right? We just like want to be creative. We want to just like build things. We want to just like do stuff, and we are proud of what we're building, right? And please don't forget to have fun in your craft. So thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.